Today we are talking about triads. Now, I think this every single week. Every week we've done this class so far. I think, wow, I think this is going to be the easiest week. This stuff is pretty straightforward. And then we really get into it, and I realize, oh, this maybe isn't quite as simple as I thought it would be. But I really do think this is going to be the easiest week so far. So, can anyone please share with us what a triad is?
Sounds like it's three of something.
Three of something, yes, three ads. So it is a three something, a three what? Have you heard that term before? Let's start with that. And given the context you've heard it before, unless it was just me randomly saying the word triad, can you use some contextual clues to figure out what it might refer to?
It's a chord with three notes.
Yes. Does that chord, and now this is just your own perhaps guess, or maybe you've heard this before, but does that mean that I can only have three notes? So those are three notes, but that's a fourth note. Does that mean that this isn't a triad because there are four notes?
I think it's like three unique notes.
Yes, three distinct notes. That's what it's called a triad because it has three unique notes. I can have as many of those as I want. So for example, because I only have a G, B, and a D, it's still the G triad because I only have those three notes. So if you're following along the textbook, we're in chapter 5 now, you'll see that a triad specifically comes from a scale. It's a part of the scale, but if we think about this way that we measure intervals as being either melodic or harmonic, this is sort of the same thing. A scale is the melodic half of music, and a triad, or even more generally chord, a triad is just a very specific type of chord, is the harmonic version of music. So it's always about notes sounding simultaneously. But it does come from the scale. It's the first, third, and fifth notes from a scale. So if we take a C major scale, and then take the first, third, and fifth notes of that scale, that gives us a triad, also a chord. It gives us a C major chord. It's called a C major chord because it's the first, third, and fifth notes of the C scale. If I wanted to play a C minor chord, I would take the first, third, and fifth notes of the C natural minor scale. I kind of mentioned this before talking about chords, but if anyone ever just says minor with no other qualifier, it's always, always, always natural minor. So natural minor scale, first, third, fifth notes, that's your C minor chord. If we were to try to figure out an F major chord, we would go to the F major scale. 1, 3, 5. In addition to forming these chords with triads, triads are also the basis of many melodies, and that's what an arpeggio is. So we've talked about melody before. An arpeggio is like the melodic version of a triad or chord. It's when you play the chord, but one note at a time. Or, who can recognize this song?
Star Spangled Banner.
Yes, very good. It arpeggiates a C major chord. Actually, it's a B flat major chord. But that's where it comes from. So with that in mind, that's a metronome. We don't need that. We don't need any of this. There we go. Okay, so with that in mind, let's talk about building some triads. We say building, that just means figure out the notes. When we say spell the triad, that means to recite the notes out loud. So I would say a C major triad is spelled C, E, G. So you can all see my piano keyboard in front of you. Can someone please spell? How about we just go with Austin? Austin, can you please spell a G major triad?
That would be G, B, D.
Mm-hmm. And Brendan, how would you change that into a G minor triad? How would that be spelled?
G, A, D?
Wouldn't be A. Remember, the way you make a scale minor is the third, sixth, and seventh are just flattened. The same thing is true of triads. The third is just flattened, so instead of G, B, D, it would be G, B flat, D. So there are two ways you can think about that. If you're trying to figure out a minor triad, the way that the book would probably suggest you do it is to just think of the minor scale and then figure out what are the first, third, and fifth notes of that scale. The other way to do it, though, if you memorize the major triads first, is to just figure out the major triad and then take the third and lower it by a half step. So, Kylie, can you please spell for us? This one's going to have an added layer of difficulty. Please spell for us a D major triad.
Okay. D, F, A. D, F sharp, A.
Yes, because D has an F sharp in the key signature. Sorry, just turning this off. Okay, and how would we turn that into a D minor triad? Samuel.
You'd flatten the F sharp, so it would be D, F, A.
DFA, which is the first one Kylie mentioned. Is someone showering?
Yeah, that's my roommate. Sorry.
Okay, all right. As long as it's not anyone here. Cool.
I am currently showering.
Perfect. Okay, well, don't get the mic wet. And I cannot see between the hat and the full face mask, but Brendan, who are you with? Oh, okay. Hey. Yeah, that's the only downside of the masks. Yeah, I feel like for most of you, this is the first time I'm seeing the bottom half of your face. Okay, so let's spell some more. Let's just, I'm going to call out some chords, and I want anyone who feels comfortable to shout back how you would spell it. A major. How would you spell an A major triad?
A, C sharp, E.
How would you spell a B minor triad?
B, D, F sharp.
Yes. Now that one took an extra couple seconds for a few reasons, right? You have these black keys involved, but also it's minor, so you have to go back in and lower that. Let's try one. Let's try B flat. How would you spell a B flat major triad? I heard a little bit of sound. Can you say that again, please?
B flat, D, F.
B flat, D, F. Right. Okay, let's do another one with some more black keys. Let's do an F sharp major triad.
F sharp, A sharp, A sharp, C sharp.
That's right. So we've talked about major and minor, but there are two others. There is diminished and augmented. So the diminished triad is like a minor triad in that it has the first and the flattened third, or the third from a minor scale, but then the fifth is lowered as well. So if we were to take C as the example, start with C major, first, third, and fifth of the major scale. To make it minor, we take the first, third, fifth of the minor scale, or lower the third by half step. And then to make it diminished, we lower the fifth as well. And augmented is going the other direction. You start with the major, and rather than bringing the flat down, you bring it up. And that's actually a really common chord progression. Where it just keeps climbing. Can any of you name a song that you think of that uses that progression? Or at least have you heard it before? Even if you can't think of a specific example, is that something that you've heard? I can think of a few. I can't remember what the actual song is called, but it's like Maybe This Time. It's from a musical. I can't remember if it's from Sweet Charity or Chicago or Cabaret, or I think it's from Cabaret. But Chicago also has that chord progression. The Green Day song Last Night on Earth uses that chord progression. A bunch of others, and also the minor version of it where the fifth climbs. Does that one sound familiar? It's okay if the answer is no. No, okay, so that's used for the James Bond theme. It's used in the song Rent from Rent. Anytime you have the fifth moving. So again, a major chord has a root or a first, a major third, and a sharp five or a raised fifth. A minor chord has a root, a minor third or a lowered third, same thing, and a fifth. The diminished chord, which one did I start with? Major or augmented? I feel like I started with augmented. Anyway, let's start that part over. A major chord is 1-3-5 from a major scale. A minor chord is 1-3-5 from a minor scale, or basing it off of the major to start with, you just lower the third. Diminished, basing off of a major scale, you lower the third and the fifth. And augmented, based off of a major scale, you raise the fifth. So with all that in mind, Caleb, how would you spell a C augmented triad? I'm wearing headphones. I don't know why I leaned in like it was going to help me hear better. But yes, I think you did say C, E, and G sharp. Okay, Austin, how would you spell a C minor triad?
That would be just C minor.
Mm-hmm.
C. Would it be E flat and then G?
Mm-hmm. And Kylie, how would you spell a C diminished triad?
C, E, and G flat.
Not quite. You're close. Two of the notes are right. It's not the major third in the middle. It's the minor.
So, okay, I have a question about the diminished and augmented chords. So, like,
Mhm.
can you have like a major diminished chord, or is it always based off of the minor chord?
You can have anything you want in music. Everything is a possibility. It would be called a flat five chord. It would be called like a major flat five. That's like 2 years away from chapter 5 of the book. So for the context of this class and this week's homework assignments, no, you cannot. But of course, in the real world, you can have anything you want. It's also called an alt chord. If you ever see alt written, it's what you just described, which has a pretty cool sound to it.
Okay, so when you ask for a diminished triad, it's always based off of the minor scale, right?
Well, sort of. Actually, that with your question kind of segues us into the next portion. But I will say that you can think about it as being the first chord, the first triad of a minor scale, if you lower the fifth. But perhaps the better way to think about it is it's just compared to the major. I think it might be easier to just refer everything back to the major version of the chord. Start with the major, lower the third and fifth. Make it diminished. And also, giving another example of a diminished chord in there. So anyway, back to what I was going to say, which I think will better address your question. If we think about C major, and this will be true of every key, but we're going to use C major as the example because the white keys make it easier to see. Is this chord major or minor? This triad.
Major.
It's major. And we know that because it lines up with the first, third, and fifth of the C major scale. Now, if I were to take the next triad, so rather than starting on the first note of the scale, if I were to start on the second note of the scale, but then play a triad, basically play a note, skip a note, play a note, skip a note, would this be major or minor? Now, it's kind of tricky because even though it's within the key of C major, you still have to figure it out in relation to D. So we did this one earlier and we figured out that D major has an F sharp in it, but this has an F natural. So this is actually a D minor. So in the key of C, if we were to play the triads starting on each scale degree, we would start with C major and then go to D minor. And if I go up, is this E major or E minor? Again, relate it back to the E major scale, even though we're in the key of C.
E minor.
E minor. This is the fourth. Is this F major or F minor?
Major.
G?
Major.
A. They also sound different. You'll get to the point where you could just tell from listening to it.
Minor.
And what it's called, so all these are called qualities. Say, what is the quality of the chord? It's major, it's minor, it's diminished, augmented. What's the quality of this last one? Now, hopefully you heard that it sounds a little different than the others.
Diminished.
It's diminished, yeah. And we get to the major again. So we had major, minor, minor, major, major, minor, diminished, and then we start over. Now, I started in C because that's the easiest, but it's the same in every key. Major, minor, minor, major, major, minor, diminished, major. So in any key, I'm going to switch from my keyboard to my iPad now. Actually, let me see if I can. There we go. So in any key, the 1 will always be major. So we're going to represent that with a capital. The 2 will always be minor, so it's lowercase. The 3 will always be minor, so it's lowercase. The 4 will always be major. The 5 will always be major. The 6 will always be minor. And the 7 will always be diminished. So it's lowercase like minor, but then it gets the little circle in any key. So if you know the notes from the major scale, which you can figure out by looking at your circle of fifths, and you can remember that it goes major, minor, minor, major, major, minor, diminished, you can tell what any chord is in any given key. So for example, what's the 6th chord in the key of C major?
A minor.
A minor. And now, if anyone doesn't already, why don't you turn to your circle of fifths? Can someone please tell me what the 5th chord is in B flat? So the way you'll do that is you'll think about your B flat scale, either through the circle of fifths or just memorizing it, figure out what's the 5th note of that scale, including any sharps or flats that might be there, and then using this formula on the screen, figure out whether that scale degree is major, minor, or diminished. So for B flat, I asked for, what did I ask for? The 5th? Yeah, okay, so in the key of B flat, what's the 5th note of the B flat scale? What is it?
E flat.
Nope, that's the 4th.
F.
Yes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And according to this chart, what quality is the 5th?
Major.
Major. So F major is the 5th in B flat. And in fact, I can tell you all the chords in the key of B flat just based on knowing the scale and looking at this. So the first chord will be B flat, the second chord will be C minor, followed by D minor, followed by E flat major, F major, G minor, A diminished, B flat major again. Now, knowing that, knowing all the chords that belong, all the triads that belong in any key, I could improvise something by following those rules. It doesn't, basically these rules set us up so that nothing will sound bad. Now, it may not sound good or as right or as perfect as it could sound if I were to just make it up completely, but if I stick to these chords, it will never sound bad. It will never go against the song. So for example, because I was talking about B flat, I will stay in B flat. I don't suppose anyone is standing with a piano in front of them who plays piano. Nope, that's okay. All right, so going back to the piano. So again, those chords are B flat, C minor, D minor, E flat, F, G minor, A diminished, B flat. So if I just play those chords however I want, but I stick to those chords, it will at least sound like a song. They think it sounds terrible. I don't think it sounds too bad. Throwing the diminished chord in is the one that is most likely to sound tense because while it fits the key, it does have this sort of dissonant quality to it, but the chords will work. So that's one way you can figure out the chords for writing music or playing along with someone. You can also use it for figuring out a song. I'm sure you all remember Tremble, right? Big song a couple years ago. When Tremble came out, I remember I had to learn that, and the first thing I did was figure out the key. You listen to it, the first note is A. I figured out that the song is actually in the key of C, though. So I knew right away that it starts on A, but it's in the key of C. I know the chord because in the key of C, which scale degree is A?
6.
It's the sixth. And in a major key, what is the quality of the sixth chord?
Minor.
Minor. So I knew it was A minor. That also means, as I'm trying to figure that song out, I don't have the whole world of chord possibilities. I know that every single chord I play is going to be either C, D minor, E minor, F, G, A minor, B diminished, probably not, but could be, or C. So there are only 7 chords to work with, and B diminished probably isn't going to be there. So really, every chord is a 1 in 6 chance. We use the term primary chords because some chords show up all the time in music. They are 1, 4, and 5. Yep, Austin's got it. If you're trying to figure out a song, and you know you're in the key of C, assume that the next chord is F, is C, F, or G. If it sounds minor, it's A minor. So we have the primary of C, F, and G, and then the secondaries of A minor, D minor, and E minor, and then B diminished, probably not going to come up. There's an app that you can download for free that will really, really help you with this. Some of you may already have it. It's called Guitar Tuna. Does anyone have the Guitar Tuna app? So if you download Guitar Tuna and you go down to Tools in the bottom corner, you go to Games and Chord Ear Trainer, it plays chords for you, and you have to figure out what chord they're playing just by the sound of it. So between training your ear to figure out what the chords are that way, and between using this system to know what chords are in any given key, it makes it pretty easy to, not easy, but significantly easier to figure out what chords could be. So I'm going to throw that diagram back up on the screen. And again, if you don't already have it out, please get your circle of fifths. Okay, Caleb, in the key of D, can you please tell us all the triads in order, the name of it, and whether it's major, minor, or diminished? So we'd start with the first one, which is D. So basically, there's a 2-step process. What you have to do is, for one, you have to know the scale. Starting on D, you have to know which notes are sharp. In the key of D, it's F sharp, C sharp, D. So those are going to be your 7 answers. It's going to start with D, E, F sharp, G, A, B, C sharp, and then D again. Then you'll use what's on the whiteboard to figure out the quality. So I will actually finish the example in D and then have you do a different one. So it would be D, the 1, 2 is E, and this tells me it's minor. 3 is F sharp, this tells me that it's minor. 4 is G, this tells me that it's major. 5 is A, this tells me that it's major. 6 is B, This tells me that it's minor. 7 is C sharp. This tells me that it's diminished, and then we finish off with one more D. So that's the key of D. Now, can you please do the same thing with the key of G?
So it'd be G major,
Mm-hmm.
A minor, B minor, C major, D major, E minor. Yeah. It is F sharp diminished.
Perfect. All right. Kylie, can you please do the same type of exercise with the key of your choice other than D or G?
Okay. Let's do. Oh shoot! Drop my pen. Let's do A major.
A major? Okay.
So it'd be A major, B minor, C sharp minor, D major, E major, F sharp minor, D sharp diminished.
And then we'll always finish with the first one again of another A minor. Okay, thank you. Samuel, can you do that for the key of F for us?
Yeah. F major, G minor, A minor, B flat major, C major, D minor, E diminished, and F major.
Okay. Brendan, what key would you like to do?
I do C.
Sure, no one's called it yet.
So it's C major, E minor, E minor, F major, G major, A diminished,
Nope. Say that again.
A minor,
A minor,
B diminished,
B diminished, and then finish it off
C.
with another C. Okay. Silas isn't with us, is he? No, I have to scroll through. Okay, so Austin, you're going to finish it off for us. Let's go for C sharp major. I'm just kidding. We won't do that to you. You can choose any key you'd like.
I'll do B.
B?
Major.
Okay, 5 sharps.
So we got B major to C sharp minor to D sharp minor to E major, F sharp major, then to G sharp minor, and then to A sharp diminished.
And then,
Back to B.
yep, very nice. Okay, so we've gone through. That's how you build these triads. That's how you figure out which triads are in any given key. So I'm just keeping an eye on the time here. So there are a few ways that you would use this in music, and this could be on guitar or piano, but let's talk about some of the main options. First off, they have this section in the textbook called closed and open position. Even though even though a C major triad is C, E, G, I'll go back to the piano for this part. Even though a C major triad is C, E, G, oh, did it? I turned it off. There we go. It doesn't mean they have to be in that order. I could have the E up here, or I could have the G on the bottom. I could have it like that. And a lot of the time, the chord shape we call this the voicing, the specific order of the notes, has a significant impact on the sound of the chord. Now, to use a few examples that I played for you earlier in the class, if I were to play this chord for you, what song is this? Just from one note, what song is this?
Don't Stop Believing.
Oh, stop. You're ruining my example. You don't know the answer. You're stumped. You have no idea what it might be. Oh, well, actually, the answer is Don't Stop Believing, but I have to play it like this for you to hear it. To use the other example I used, I should really come up with some others, but these are the ones on the top of my head. This chord. To me, it actually sounds like the High School Musical intro, but that's not what it is. In that voicing, it sounds like it, though. But if I take this note, put it up here, and I drop this one, and only stick with the bottom one, you get the Seasons of Love intro. So the order of the chord can really have a significant impact on how it sounds. And sometimes, even though you ruined my example, you won't recognize the song unless it's in that specific order. So as you're looking at these notes, trying to figure out what they are, you have to rearrange them. So if you see these notes, those are clearly not in an order where the notes are 1, 2, 3, separated by a third. So what order would I have to rearrange these in so that the notes look like they're play a note, skip a note, play a note, skip a note, play a note? Well, for one, let's bring them closer together. Is it currently play a note, skip a note, play a note, skip a note? Play a note again? No. What do I have to move?
The C.
The C down here. Then all of a sudden, it's in the shape we recognize. Let me do another one for you. How should I rearrange this so that the notes are in order? And if you're ever unsure, you can just start moving things around until it fits.
Is it D, F sharp, A?
Yeah, you move the F sharp up here. You want to get to the point where you see this triad shape. Let's do one more. That's the note. What should I move?
E flat down an octave.
Okay. Is it in the right order now? It's closer, but is it there all the way?
And the F sharp up an octave.
There you go. So don't be thrown off by the fact that that's calling it an E flat. Call it a D sharp, and what chord is it?
B major.
B major, perfect. Now, that is, in my opinion, most challenging on the piano. I think when you do that on like actual sheet music, it's even easier because you can really see when the notes are in the proper order. So for example, that's what a triad should look like. Should either be 3 space notes in a row or 3 line notes in a row. And if you see anything other than 3 space notes or 3 line notes in a row, that means it's an open chord and we want to make it a closed chord. We want to put it into this shape because it's easier to analyze in this order. So I'm going to give you some chords. The exact same exercise we just did on the piano, but now I'm going to do it with the sheet music. What can I move to make these 3 in a row?
You move the C sharp up an octave.
What chord is it now?
A major.
Yep. Let's do 2 more. Oh my goodness. What needs to move?
The E needs to come down.
The E needs to do what?
Come down. Octave.
Now what is it?
C major.
Yep. And last one. Uh-oh. What do we have to do?
Is it not a triad?
It is a triad.
I thought because one was on a space and the other two were on lines.
That
Oh, that's a B flat. Wait. What were you gonna say?
I was going to say that's actually a good indication that it's out of order because they're supposed to be all lines or all spaces. So if you see a combination, that's your dead giveaway that something, it's not that it's in the wrong place. Some of the coolest sounding chords are this open version, but it's not in the most neatly organized, closed variety. So we have a B flat on the bottom, and then an F, and then a D on top.
So you just drop the D down an octave.
Drop D, right? And what's the chord?
B flat.
B flat what?
Major.
Yes, although you're still right, because if it's major, you don't have to actually specify. When we're talking about chords, sometimes it's helpful to be extra clear, but if someone ever just lists the chord, they mean the major version. Okay, so there are a few of, now that we talked about open versus closed, there are a few ways you can use these chords to accompany yourself or accompany another person with the chord. Now, one would be broken chord. So if you take the C chord and you just play it in pieces, it'll be a broken chord. A block chord is just. The arpeggiated chords. So when you play the notes one at a time. And Alberti bass is like a classical thing. Let's go. I don't know. I'm not really a piano player. But that's Alberti bass sign. So when you have that order of low, high, middle, high. So you have broken chords, block chords, arpeggiated, and Alberti. Now, when you look at a chord chart or a lead sheet, now, if you couldn't already, you can figure out these chords. So if you're looking at a chord chart and it says play a D major chord, how would you spell that?
A D, an F, and an
There's a D minor,
A. F sharp A.
F sharp. Do any of you know what Nashville numbers is? Can someone describe it?
It's when instead of calling the chords in a key by their letter name, you call them by the number name. So like the first and the fourth and the fifth, and then based off of the like major and minor things.
Yeah. Exactly. And they don't need to say, oh, give me a minor 2 and then give me a major 5 and a major 1. You just say 2, 5, 1 because 1 is always major, 2 is always minor, 3 is always minor, 4 is always major, 5 is always major, 6 is always minor, 7 is always diminished. If you want to change that, then you specify. Like, for example, E minor is the third of C. The third's always minor, but if I want the major third, then I have to say something like that. Then it kind of has its own sound. So you always assume it's the normal version unless someone specifies. Going through here, they have this section on inverted triads. Inverted just means it's open, it's in a different order. I don't really want to stress that too much right now, but if the root is on the bottom, it's root position. If the third is on the bottom, it's called first inversion, and if the fifth is on the bottom, it's called second inversion. So you already figured out the notes of the chord. Root position, root's on the bottom. First inversion, you're inverting it one time. So the third's on the bottom, and second inversion, you're inverting it a second time. Fifth's on the bottom. I don't want to confuse you with that. So if that makes sense right away, excellent. If that seems confusing, that's okay. One way to think about building these chords, in addition to the way we've been talking about already, is to say that a major third, this is worth going back here now, a major triad is a major third stuck on top of a minor third. So what's a major third higher than C? This is going back to our intervals from last week.
E major?
Or just E, yeah. A major third higher than C is E. Now what's a minor third higher than E?
G sharp minor?
So you don't have to say major or minor because we're just talking about individual notes. But it's not G sharp. So when we're trying to figure out a minor third higher than E, you can think about it one of two ways. You can either say in the E minor scale, what's the third note? Or you can just count up 3 half steps, that other way we talked about doing it. So using one of those two methods, either the third note of an E minor scale or 3 half steps higher than E.
G.
G. So that gives us a C major chord. So you can see a major triad is a major third stacked on top of a minor third. A minor triad is a minor third stacked on top of a major third. So let's start with A. What's a minor third higher than A? Again, that's the third note of the A minor scale, or it's 3 half steps higher than A.
C.
And Caleb, what is a major third higher than C?
E.
E. So sure enough, ACE, that spells out the major chord. You can also go with a diminished chord as a minor third stacked on top of a minor third, and an augmented chord is a major third stacked on top of a major third. And then let's just throw the others on here too, so you can see. So why don't you all write that down? That's going to be an important way of figuring out these chords. Now, you'll see that there are many ways to figure out how to spell these triads. We spent the first part of today's lecture talking about one of the common ways. This is another popular way, and I'm going to show you a fourth way in just a moment. There are kind of two ways built into the first approach. Okay, we'll clear that. Now, I learned last week for the first time that even though the first few chapters of the textbook between the first edition and the second edition have exactly the same notes, exactly the same exercises, the later chapters have different exercises. So I know Austin's using the second edition. How many people were thoroughly confused when I'm saying that I'm going through exercises in the book and they're just not at all what you're looking at? At least two people, two and a half ish people. So I'm looking at the exercises in the second edition right now. If they are different than the exercises in the first edition, please call those out. But looking at, for me, what is page 109, this is the start of the exercises, identify the notated triads by root name and quality. So that very first one, what are those three notes?
C, E, G.
C, E, and G. So what's the name of that triad?
C major.
C major. So when you're doing it this way, this is sort of like reverse engineering these. There are a few ways to go about this. The first way would be to start with the root, because you know as long as they're stacked in that right order, that's thirds or 3 line notes, 3 space notes in the right order. Either looking at a piano or using the piano chart in the back of your book, you can figure out what's the interval relationship between these. Are they stacked major third and then minor third? Or you can look at your circle of fifths and say, is this the first, third, and fifth from the major scale or the first, third, and fifth from the minor scale? Now, if it's major or minor, you'll get your answer right there. If it's diminished or augmented, you actually don't even need to worry about what the third note is. With Kylie's example of can you have a major third with a flat 5? Again, a long time from now, this will get more complicated. But for this week, if you notice that the fifth is not correct, the fifth is not the major or the minor scale, if it's a half step lower than it should be, what kind of chord is it? If I expect to see, yeah, say that again, please.
Diminished.
Diminished. If the fifth is higher than I expect it to be,
Augmented.
it's augmented. So you might actually, for this exercise, at least want to start with the fifth. Is the fifth correct? If so, go to the third. Is that third from the major scale or the minor scale? If the fifth is not correct, if it's low, it's diminished. If it's high, it's augmented. And with the circle of fifths in front of you, this will be time consuming, but I don't think it'll be difficult. I think it'll just be a lot of like looking back and forth until you memorize these. When you're doing the homework for these, you do not need to do that alto clef for exercise 1. You'll only do, at least mine has alto clef. You'll only do the treble and bass clef exercises. You can write that in now. Let's go to exercise 2. Given the root name, correctly notate the following triads. So I think this section 2 will actually be easier for you than section 1 because this is sort of how we've been approaching it today. So the first one I have is A major. Samuel, how would you spell an A major triad?
A, C sharp, E.
And using the terms second space, third line, how would I write that on here?
Okay, that'll be the bottom space.
Which is called, not called the bottom space.
First space.
First space.
Yeah.
And actually, we can stop there because if you know the first one is this, if you can find the first one, just stack the next two and then add in the accidentals you need. And that'll even be true of diminished chords. So if we have like C diminished, it's still 3 in a row. It's still that. It's just knowing where these sharps and flats go. Going to section 3, notate triads in root position when given the root pitch and the quality. So they're actually, it's funny, this one's actually, it's just a little different that they're not giving you the letter name. You have to look at the staff to see what the letter name is. So Brendan, what's that first one? If you have your book with you.
Section 3.
Section 3, first note. See? Yeah. So, and they want major. So we already know that the first thing you're going to do is stack the triads. Do I have to add any sharps or flats to make sure that's a C major chord? Nope, it's perfect. All right, section 4, given the root third or fifth, ooh, okay, of the triad and quality, notate the correct triad on the staff. This has an added layer of complexity. So, that first one, let's say this. For this section, section 4, only do the major and minor examples. If it's diminished or augmented, don't do that for now. You will have plenty of practice in the other sections. For section 4, only do major and minor. So, that first one is minor, though. And it has B flat. And it's telling us that's the minor third. So, we actually, this is easier than you might think, because the first thing we just do is draw those note heads, right? So that takes a big part of the equation out. It's so much simpler. We know it's some kind of G. So now we know that it's G. We have to look at our key signature, circle of fifths, or just play on the piano. We know that B flat is in the middle, but we don't know if it's a G flat, a G natural, or a G sharp. So you have to figure out which type of G minor triad has a B flat as its third. So what you can do is, looking at circle of fifths, you want to find all of the different, on the minors in the inner circle, find all the different G's that are listed there. And some of these don't have examples. Remember, there is no, which one is it? There is no D flat minor, for example. So you're not going to have to figure out from all the possibilities, but just the ones listed on the inner circle, of all the ones that start with G, which one has a B flat as the third note?
G natural minor.
Yes, so it's G minor. I know that's tricky. I remember, we're not done yet. I'm saving what I think will be the easiest trick for the very last part of today. I want to go through it with the way the textbook wants you to do this first, and then I'll show you what I think is an easier approach. Let's do one more of these, because this is, I think, the most challenging one so far. Because we're skipping the augmented and diminished, let's go to that third one there, or the fourth one. This is another bass clef example. It gives you a low G sharp. We can fill in those notes. And it's major. So it's some type of E. Looking now in the outer circles of all the E's, which is E major and E flat major, there is no E sharp major. Which of those two has G sharp as its third? E major or E flat major?
E major.
E major, yep. So tell me if I'm right in this, and I really want to know if I'm not right. I feel like this stuff is, like I said, time consuming and a bit tedious at first, but not difficult. Is that a fair assessment, or would you say that there is a pretty challenging aspect to this? Thumbs up? A couple thumbs up? Okay. So yeah, if you spend some time doing it. Now, section 4, I think, is good practice because it's harder than anything you'll have to do. And for those of you in your different career fields you want to go into, you don't want something you do regularly to be the most difficult thing you can do. You know what I mean? You want your threshold to be much higher. So like, if I can do things that are this challenging, this is what I do at work on a daily basis. That's why we have sections like 4. This is a lot harder than a normal thing a musician will have to figure out. But if you can do this, then reading a chord chart or reading natural numbers, that becomes super easy, because this is really going to give you a very deep and thorough understanding of how these triads work. So it's more challenging than something you'll do, but that's good because it just really helps you enhance your understanding of this material. All right, we are almost done. We have 2 sections left. Let's go through. Section 5, identify the notated triads by root name, quality, and correct inversion. Thinking about this. Let's not do the correct inversion part. If you want to figure it out, then you can get some extra credit on that. But you just have to figure out the chord and the quality. See, this is why it's good to show up to the video lectures, because you find out that you don't have to do all the homework. Okay, so this first one here. We have a combination of space notes and line notes. What does that tell us?
That it's an open chord or open formation.
Exactly. It's an open voicing. It's inverted, which is cool. That's good. Not a problem, but not as easy to work with. So what I want you to do, and you can actually do this with your pen or pencil as you fill these in, I want you to move them into the closed position because it will be easier to work with. So what change do I have to make to this in order to make it a closed position version of the same chord?
You move the F up an octave.
Yep. And you can always experiment with these. Maybe you think you know the answer and you move it and it's wrong. That's not a big deal. Just fix it. And if you're doing this in pen, I don't know why you're doing it in pen, but if you are, then just in that space right next to it, like let's say I mistakenly thought I had to move the D down and I'm using a pen. I'm like, oh, that wasn't right. So then just right next to it, put in what you think is actually the correct answer. Okay, so we have that, some type of B flat. By looking at, remember we said let's do the fifth first. So looking at all of your different B flats on the circle of fifths, there aren't many. Is that fifth where it should be? So look at the key of B flat major. Is F the fifth, or has that been altered? You know, the fact that it took you guys so long to answer that changed my mind. Let's not do section 5. I think you're going to get plenty of practice without doing section 5. And that's my big criticism. I really like some parts of this book, but I think the exercises are way too hard. And if I think they're way too hard, I can't imagine how you guys feel. I think the content's great, but she just moves too fast. So unfortunately, you guys got to be guinea pigs on the new textbook, and I think we're going to go to one that maybe is a little slower next time. I mean, that'll be, I look forward to hearing from you at the end of the semester. Maybe you thought the pacing was good because it allowed us to get through so much, but keep that in mind because that'll be a conversation we'll have together at the very last week of class. And you know what, for that matter, let's not do section 6 either. So let's just do sections 1 through 4 this week. Now, with our remaining time, we have 11 minutes left. I want to show you the other approach that I like to use. There's a video that I'm going to post on our site this week. You may have probably seen it already because any of the videos I posted, a lot of time it just defaults to this other one. It's me explaining it at a conference at NYU. But this is called chord formulas approach. It's going to give you the same answers, but I think in a much faster way. So for chord formulas, basically, on this, I'll also include a PDF you can look at. Watch the video, follow along in the PDF. There are formulas for each chord. So a major chord is root plus 4 plus 3. So if you can, please get your piano chart out of the back if you don't already have it. So someone give me a chord, please, a major chord.
E.
E, thank you. What's the root of E? E. The root is always going to be the name of the chord. What's 4 half steps higher than E on your piano?
G sharp.
What's 3 half steps higher than G sharp?
B.
Thank you. And that's your answer. And then you can still invert that, or you can put different notes in the bass, You can do whatever you want, but those are your notes. The minor chord formula is root plus 3 plus 4. So can someone give me a different minor chord, please?
E minor.
Say that again?
E minor.
E minor. I don't know why I keep leaning forward. I must look like an idiot with these stupid headphones on. Maybe we'll say it again. It says E minor. What is 3 half steps higher than E?
G.
Mm-hmm. And what is 4 half steps higher than G?
E.
So for the chord formulas, you have a bunch of them. They're all going to be listed on this PDF that I'll include. For example, so we already said major is root plus 4 plus 3. Minor is root plus 3 plus 4. Diminished is root plus 3 plus 3. And augmented, just use that symbol, is root plus 4 plus 4. Well, the way the textbook shows you is great, and that's how it's historically been taught in music classrooms, but it really gives you triads. What if you want a triad that isn't standard like this? For example, if you wanted to figure out like a D sus2, the chord formula for D sus2 is root plus 2 plus root plus 2 plus 5. So in the key of D, what's the root?
E.
D.
D. Yeah, the root of D is D. What's 2 half steps higher than D?
E.
And what's 5 half steps higher than E?
A.
Yeah. So that gives you your D sus2. Are any of you Breaking Bad fans? A little bit. Well, then never mind. Okay, moving on from that reference. So again, the charts on here that on the PDF I'll include for you. So watch the other video. This one will be posted on there for your review. You're only doing sections 1 through 4 in the exercises this week, and it's only in this book. There won't be any additional ones. What else? I thought there was one other thing I wanted to say. I guess not. Okay. Well, that is that. Everyone did an awesome job on the first exam. I was super impressed. Normally the average is like a B-ish, but I think everyone got an A on that one, so super impressive. Which suggests to me that even though we are moving very quickly, you're all getting it and keeping up. So I guess if you want me to go slower, stop doing so well on the homework and tests. Any last questions before we go today? Okay. Well, if you think of any, send me an email. Otherwise, these exercises 1 through 4 will, as usual, be due next Tuesday. And I will see you a week from today. We will go over the book this time. Remember, there's one very short paper you have to write for this class. We'll go over those details next week. But if you want, I would suggest you get started on reading The Inner Game of Music, so that when we get to writing your short reaction paper to that, you've already gotten some of the work done. But anyway, that's going to be due a couple weeks from now. All right, well, that's it. Have a great week, and I will see you next Wednesday.